Senior Home Affairs officials have been suspended after a probe into the issuing of permanent residence permits to Shepherd Bushiri and his family. A recent report by Lawyers for Human Rights, in fact, revealing shocking levels of corruption by Home Affairs officials. Tshegofatso Mothapo is a legal researcher at the organization's statelessness unit. She joins us now for more on this story. Tshegofatso, thanks very much for your time on this Monday morning. I mean, applying for permanent residence, for that permit, it can be incredibly lengthy, also incredibly expensive. It's a process that many people often can't afford. But as we're finding out, if you know the right people, you can get through some loopholes.
Thank you so much, Michelle, for inviting us. Yes, there are long delays when it comes to permanent residence applications. And not only that, we realize that, through our work, that a lot of the clients that we have also applied for have not received their outcomes, and which is very telling, this Bushiri situation of this predicament we find ourselves in.
So I mean, is it true that when you are applying for a permanent residency permit that oftentimes you will need an immigration attorney? I mean, surely if that's the case, that's exclusionary for a whole lot of people.
It shouldn't be that way, but because of the nitty-gritties of the way in which the system is structured. First of all, permanent residence applications are online applications, which is very exclusionary to some of the marginalized communities that we work with. And secondly, there's also the issue of the long delays. Eventually, even if you did not start the process with a lawyer, eventually you will find yourself requiring a lawyer because of the delays, because you'd want somebody to put pressure on Home Affairs in that situation.
I mean, what's your experience? What are people telling you, rather, about their experience insofar as this application process is concerned? Because certainly the stories that we're hearing is situations where people are sent from pillar to post, they are harassed, they're threatened with deportation, if indeed they don't pay the bribes that we now know senior officials in that department are often demanding.
Yes, I mean, as I mentioned, we work a lot with marginalized communities, and one of the applications we make for especially vulnerable children who are unaccompanied, is particularly children who are born outside South Africa, who come to South Africa with a parent and the parent passes on. One of the ways in which they can regularize their stay is through a permanent residence by exemption. This is what is called a ministerial exemption. And, the thing about it is that usually those children have no connection to any other country except South Africa, following whatever event happens, such as the passing of the parent. And so what we've come to realize is that, besides the cost implications, besides, the issue of requiring legal representative, there's also further barriers, such as, the consistent need to have somebody follow up with those applications. We've also realized that, currently, there's an ongoing matter that is being launched at court concerning permanent residence applications that go far back as 6 years ago, which is very telling of the situation of Home Affairs. And not only that, this was also further exacerbated by COVID, whereby Home Affairs made it a point to not basically provide certain services, which includes permanent residence. So currently those applications aren't being processed. And another question again, which I'm going to flag again, is that, how do you have applications going far back as 6 years ago, and then you have a situation where somebody gets permanent residence a year after entering into the country? So basically, who gets the better treatment and why?
I mean, one can just imagine that this process has meant families effectively breaking up, literally people not being able to enter into the country while their families are left in South Africa.
Definitely, definitely. It has its impact on family unity. And, some of the cases that we've seen are as severe as, having a parent that has permanent residence and children, that are applying for this and are struggling to get this, which basically goes against the principles of family unity. So yeah, agreed.
It's a difficult one because, when you're in that desperate situation, and it's a choice between effectively keeping your family together or paying a bribe, what are you seeing? How is that choice unfolding?
So a lot of the clients that we do see are often put, are placed between a hard rock and a hard place and a rock, particularly because of the situations they usually find themselves in. Firstly, getting all of that money is, as we mentioned, is a problem. Secondly, requiring a legal representative is another issue altogether. As not many practitioners work in this area of law. And then the other issue that they usually find themselves in, if they are confronted in a situation where they are requested to pay bribes, there's always there's always this moral dilemma they find themselves in, which is mainly due to all of these issues at Home Affairs. And these are issues that are ongoing. The corruption is nothing new. Organizations after organizations have written reports and given recommendations. This is issues that are also discussed at the Portfolio Committee on Home Affairs consistently. And so there is nothing new except that there are no measures being placed to deal with these issues.
Yeah, you talk about those reports by Lawyers for Human Rights finding endemic and systemic corruption within the Department of Home Affairs. And of course, it is, as you say, nothing new. How do we move the dial insofar as this discussion is concerned around corruption in this important part of our state machinery?
Yeah, I definitely think that, part of the recommendations that are made to Home Affairs time and time again, is ensuring that there are third parties monitoring this, whether it's, dealing with particularly corruption. And also the other thing to keep in mind, Michelle, is the fact that even though these officials are officials that are usually named, and there's usually all this mayhem around who did what. There's never a transparent process as to what exactly happened. So nobody ever knows whether anybody was ever held accountable for this. So we need transparent measures or processes in place to deal with corruption. And I think that's where Home Affairs is failing as well.
Yeah, absolutely. A third party to oversee these processes. Tshegofatso Mothapo, thanks very much for your time this morning. Systemic and endemic corruption in the Department of Home Affairs, specifically insofar as the issuing of permanent residency permits are concerned. She is a legal researcher at Lawyers for Human Rights.